Hello, guys.
We have an amazing guest today, guys. And it's Jordi Bruin. Jordi, how are you? How's it going?
Not too bad. My leg is hurting a little bit, but we've got nice weather again here in Amsterdam, so that makes up for a lot of it. What about you two?
Cool. I mean, we're sweating in Sorrento right now, but overall it's fine. Fede?
California is as sunny as you would expect it in July. We don't sweat that much because it's not that humid, but all good. Excited for this new episode.
Yes. And I think we could definitely start asking Jordi. We can tell us a little bit more about who you are.
All right, so I'm Jordi Bruin. I'm from the Netherlands, and I'm 32 years old. For the last, I think, like 8 or 9 years, I've been in tech. I used to do this like management, economics, and law study that I didn't like at all, and managed to get into an internship at this digital agency in Alkmaar, where I started as an analyst, like just doing spreadsheets and stuff. And
wow.
we started our like creative part of the company a few years later, and me and the main designer there really got along. And so then throughout the years, I like slowly worked myself up to becoming more of a. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call myself a really, really good designer, but along the way, I've learned a lot of the skills that come with making products. So from developing to doing design, doing UX and stuff like that. And then like 2 years ago, I moved to Amsterdam, and I thought it would be nice shift to start working here. So I quit there and I started my own company called Good Snooze, where I've been basically doing design, development, and other product-related stuff for companies. I was working for a hotel in March, and as you all know, hotels weren't doing so well in March. So I went home and started working on some of my own stuff. And right now I'm working full-time on that.
Yes, and this sounds perfect because it connects to how I got in touch to you, and we can say that a little bit of the whole story, because I started following you not for your apps or for your project, but for your amazing website that is built in Notion. Now you know how I love Notion, and from that was immediately it started following on Twitter, like super easy. And after that, I just saw that you were testing a really, I would say, not so common app. We can say that. It was in test flight mode, so it was a beta, and I just texted you a message saying, Jordi, please give me a test flight. I want to be a tester because I love this kind of app. So what are we talking about?
Let me get back to that Notion thing first. So I was about to like quit my previous job, and then I had to apply for different companies, which I hadn't done for 7 years. And it was like on a Sunday that I saw the job listing, and I had to submit it by Monday. So what I did is I didn't have a website, I didn't have a portfolio, so I went to Notion, built it all in like one day, and slowly started iterating over it. So it's really cool that like was the reason that we ended up together. So yeah, the project I'm working on, the product is called Soosee, and I had a girlfriend last year who was allergic to oranges, so she couldn't have like the fruit, and I would have to like constantly check the labels on the back of products to see if there were any oranges in there, right? And because she was from Australia and we live here in the Netherlands, she also couldn't really do the translation. So I figured there must be an easier way to do that. So then last year, Apple announced some new features for iOS 13, and one of the sample projects was basically like a phone number reader. So you could point your phone at text, and it would like highlight all the phone numbers. So I made this little app for her that would just like highlight oranges. It was just a funny app just for her. We broke up a few months later, so didn't really go anywhere. But I always had that idea in the back of my head, like there must be something here. It's kind of cool. So then I decided, all right, let me just try in the month of April to make it work for other allergies as well, and for people who are vegan. So basically what it does is you point the camera at like a product label, like the ingredient list at the back of the product, and it'll highlight like any words that you don't want to eat or don't want to avoid. And the cool thing is that because it's based on words and not on databases, it can also be translated. So it works in 15 languages right now. So it's super useful as well when you're on vacation. So yeah, I'm pretty psyched about it as well.
I was like completely amazed about how this guy built this in the quarantine, like in 1.5 months. Okay, it was started from a concept, but you did everything.
I kind of got stuck on it for a bit. So what happened at the start? I wanted to, all right, let me see if I can make it work with multiple words. I'm not a programmer per se. I've been programming for the last, I would say, 4 years on some hobby project here and there, but nothing like full time. So a lot of my code is really bad. So let me preface everything by that.
All right.
But once I got like the first thing working, it was super inspiring to keep working on it. It was like, hey, this thing is actually working. Hey, it actually triggers stuff. And then I got into this little rut where I thought about, all right, how am I going to design this? So I think I spent like 2 weeks going over every screen, redesigning everything, making it all look fancy, and not like focusing on if it actually works. What's the best way to present the information and stuff? So then I think it was like halfway in April when I said to myself, all right, I'm going to stop designing, and I'm just going to start using the basics, like just get the product out there so I can get feedback. So the first version, I'll put some screenshots on the notes later. Sure. Was really just the camera and like big squares at the bottom, different colors. It was way too chaotic and stuff. And then I started toning it down a little bit more just to make progress. And I posted it on some Facebook groups for people with allergies, and they gave a lot of feedback. And also, like, I had all these assumptions, right? People want to know the individual words that were triggered, or no, but in reality, people just want to know, can I have it or not? Is it my category or not that I can have? And also like the highlighting of the words, because by highlighting the words on the camera, people see the context, so they see, all right, hey, this word is triggered here, and then they can double check it themselves. But you don't want to make that too complex and stuff. So there were all these learnings that I got after I put that first version out there for the first like 200 test flight users or something. So if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for like, all right, just put it out there, get feedback, iterate, I think it would have been a lot longer. And also, I started thinking, right, is it good enough to ship? Is it ready? And then WWDC was coming up, so I was like, all right, I need to get it out before WWDC. So then I put it out in the Netherlands and Belgium only, even though it was already working in other languages, but that way it was easier for me to get feedback. So in every app, also the production version, there was like an iMessage button, so people could directly contact me for questions and stuff. And I think that really helped make it simpler, and let me just focus on getting it out there and getting feedback.
I think that actually fascinates me, and very similar to what came out during our conversation with Matteo like a few weeks ago. It looks like, especially today, if you look at the overall spectrum of design thinking, we're going through what is called more like an accelerated discovery and an expanding testing and iteration phase, especially testing and prototyping. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like, and very similar to even what Matteo said, you had an idea. Just because you're focusing on something that's a user need, you didn't feel like you had to study so much and get all the different gist of how the problem works, but you thought you have a really good stated problem, and then you really focus, as you said, on, okay, is it ready to go out? It's more important to me to get tests out of it than to make sure that I got all the knowledge about allergies, for example, right?
Yeah, because one of the things is like, all right, if you do something with allergies, obviously it's health related as well. And I'm not a dietitian, so I don't want to make any claims that I can never back up. So also when I reached out to the first testers, I was super transparent about, hey, is this something that will be useful? Like, I think for me it would work because of the situation I had in the past. Please let me know how you would use it or what I could change to make it fit your lifestyle. Because there's these people that, if you have allergies, some people have to check literally every product every time. So even if you can save them like 10 seconds on every product, that's like 5 minutes per shopping time, 3-4 times a week. Like that can make an impact. So I wanted, at the start I was like, oh, I'm gonna think of everything. I'm gonna come up with all the solutions and all the perfect designs. And I had to stop myself in my tracks and just say, all right, because I was at some point like spending 2 days like refactoring screens and making the design different, and then introducing bugs. And if you have the core problem, if that's the main thing that you want to figure out, and I know it's different if you're working on a product for a company or something.
You ask for forgiveness, you didn't ask for permission. And what I mean is that you didn't spend so much time in strategizing. And to me, it's really important because especially when you are in some enterprise scenario, there has to be a fairly large amount of study, depending on what kind of problem you're solving. But starting from a very, again, well-stated problem, you were able to go in, call yourself like just an enthusiast, not like a medical expert in any shape or form, and then just give to those people the product and tell them, is it helping, rather than trying to understand how they were thinking about allergies.
That way you can only come up with the solutions that the people who are using it like give you. And obviously there's some back and forth there, you come up with your own ideas. But I think in the long term, that's a really nice approach, because then you're from the start involving your users, which also I think helped a lot with like the marketing and getting the word out. And there's like these people now that constantly send me updates or like suggestions on how to improve it. But I sometimes worry about that, and then I stop worrying. But like I worry, like, is this the right approach, or am I not like overlooking something, or am I not just making something because enough people say they want it? But on the other hand, like, I'm trying to help this group of people make their lives easier. I think that's the main goal for my product. Obviously, it would be nice if eventually I can like work full time on this and just like make a living out of this. But right now, it's we just reached 10,000 downloads in the first month, which is quite nice, I think.
Wow.
But it's obviously not there yet for like making a living out of it. But like if someone says, hey, if you could add this feature and it will make my life easier, like who am I to then say, no, it doesn't fit on the product roadmap? Like, come on, I think it's really nice to have that direct connection.
Well, first of all, I would say congratulations, because getting, you said 10,000 downloads.
Yeah. Wow. I mean,
it's not that easy. I've never done it, so yeah, congrats.
Thanks.
I hope that you guys are watching on YouTube, because Raffaele's face is priceless.
No, really. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah. So what happened is I put this post like on a Friday afternoon. I put this post on LinkedIn, which was like a small video of the app, and that got shared like 300,000 times or something. So I put a little link to a waiting list email form. So before I launched, I already had 5,000 people on the waiting list. And now I'm actually like learning a lot of languages, because now I'm doing this strategy where every morning I go to like Facebook groups of different countries and do the same process I did at the start, but then in that country. So this week I'm talking to a lot of German people and using a lot of Google Translate to understand what they're saying. But the process works the same, but there's obviously differences in different countries. For example, in Scandinavia, there's these letters that the app wasn't picking up. Like if there's diacritics, I'm not sure if everyone, it's like if you have an A with dots on top of it or a U with dots on top, the app wasn't picking that up. And it was only because of some feedback from early users that I was able to fix it. It was like a one-line code to fix it, but now I'm at the point where I need to focus on marketing as well, and I'm not the best at that, but I think it's super important as well.
Well, you are, I would say, extremely humble person, because you say you're not the best at a lot of things, but it looks like you're doing a really good product in the end. So I mean, to be positive, because I think it's great.
I think it's the imposter syndrome as well.
Oh yeah.
You know, where you always like, oh, you're just one bad review away. So we got like 5-star reviews, because I'm working on this together with a friend of mine, and we got all these great reviews, and then every now and then there's like a 1-star review that's like someone says, oh, I expected the app to do this, and it didn't. And it's like, okay, we never claimed that we did X, Y, or Z, and those are the ones that stick by you. So I don't know, maybe it's also because it's pretty early days, and it's still like, it feels a bit surreal to have your own product be out there and making people happy, but yeah.
So I wanted to ask you a question about that. I mean, you're already on the App Store, and we will share the link on our Medium article and on Twitter about like the app, so you guys can go and download and use Soosee and let us know. But I wanted to know more about the future and what are some of the next wave, the new features that you've been thinking about. And I remember I've been looking at the reviews, and I got one that was about, I think, the quantity of salt in the ingredients.
That's the one.
And this person was asking about, why it doesn't pick up how much salt is in there. And I know it's always this fine line between the user doesn't understand what we do and what can actually the app do right now, and now we can make it like even better. So I'm curious to know about like this experience and what's next for Soosee.
In that specific experience, a person said, I expected it to pick up if there was a lot of salt in the product, which is obviously, it's a problem that's in the same space, but it's different, right? You're not picking just up what's in there. I think it's not wise for me to start doing more like broader features without like making sure that the main feature works perfectly. And also, I think it's also clearness in the product is really important. I think that people know, hey, it does this one thing really well, and then over time you can start adding stuff to it. So in iOS 14 later this year, Apple is supporting Chinese and some other languages. So I'll be able to support some more languages. But my main thing for now is to build up this structured like app experience where it's easier for me to add new features. It's easier for me to add new products. It's easier for me to add new languages, and just to make sure it's a more robust product. And part of that robustness is also looking at the design again. So if you look at it now, except for the scanner screen, most of the app is pretty like standard iOS, like default objects. It's made with Swift UI, which is the new language that Apple introduced last year for like programming, and it makes a lot of stuff easier, especially if you use default tools. And it also makes it work like really well for accessibility and stuff. So I wanted to stick close to that. But now I think I'm at the point where I want to also give the app a little bit more character here and there. I'm doing that like on, for example, on the settings screen. There's like so there's a lot of like translators in the app. So what I did is I wanted to make a special thing to thank them also. There's like a little globe of the earth with emojis for all the translators, and there's all these little how would you say it, like
Easter egg
bits of personality as well. It's like on the page where people can like sign up for some extra page features, we talk about, all right, hey, it's made by me and Matja, like we want to, and her vegan dog, like I think it's nice to give your app some personality so that people know who's behind it as well. So actually, hopefully somewhere next week, me and Rafael are going to do a little brainstorming session.
Yes. Yeah, we can spoil that. I was so excited about that, and I got to say, I have to get involved in this. I love this concept. I love this product. Do you believe that the language part was the hardest thing that you have to overcome?
Initially, obviously the AR stuff and like highlighting the words on the camera, finding them, making sure that it highlights the right ones. That was obviously the main problem to tackle. But once that was there, and once that was working well enough, and once I had like a decent like design implementation for that, with like highlighting with colors. For example, at first I didn't have rounded colors for the highlights, which it looked well, but it looked very techy, like it was like a computer scanning a screen. But just by making rounded was already like, it felt more real, it felt more like human, I guess. And then once that was up and running, it was, I think for like 3 weeks, I didn't really do any design or programming, because I was basically doing full-time allergy research, finding resources for, all right, which words should be related to specific allergy A, or at some point we added like the vegan category. So right, hey, we want to highlight stuff that's related to veganism. Added palm oil and stuff, and then I had to find this process of finding the right data and making sure that the data that we put in there is valid, and also that it's valid for different countries. And I think right now there's like 10,000 words in there, crossed out like over 20 languages. Not all of them are in the app because some aren't supported, like Japanese and stuff. But that definitely took a lot of time to get right. And that's also why it was super important for me to get early feedback from test users, because I mean, obviously in the Netherlands it's easy for me. What I did is I have a little book somewhere here. Hang on, let me show you.
Yeah.
The secret book.
I was on a road trip in Croatia last year with some friends when I was already thinking about the product. So what I did, I took back all these like product packaging because I wanted to have like product labels in different languages, right? Basically, I have a little book filled with like labels that I used to test. And these was obviously, this was different languages, so I could use it for the initial version. But after a while, you have to get feedback from people in the real world.
That actually makes me think about something that is, again, a thread, a common thread with what Matteo told us. Especially when you guys come out with these needs that you can see your user have, you're not focusing on making something very big and make it super comprehensive. I love the fact that you guys are focusing on making the app do one thing but do it well. As you said, if I want it to be able to read everything in different language, that's what I'm gonna spend my time on, rather than adding features about reading the amount of salt, for example. So that is super interesting to me, because most of the time, a lot of the strategy behind creating like an app or a concept is how many features can I create? And people start to do this sort of like over-indexing on features that makes the apps more complicated and terrible to use. So I love that this is a common thread that we are discovering with you. I'm on board with that approach.
Yeah, it's difficult though, because every now and then you have an idea like, oh, this would be so cool to add. So what I did, I made like a Trello board where I just, every idea I have, I just put it on like a long list. I think right now it's like 80 different things that I'm maybe gonna do someday, but just to get it out of my head, and then like try to make some sort of structure of, hey, this is important to do now.
The other aspect that I wanted to point out as one of the lesson learned is that, you know how we have this overall, we are drawn by the user testing, that it's a good thing. But I love that you mentioned the fact that you were focusing on getting out there, find some Facebook group with people allergic to different substances, right? And you ask them, like you didn't have to get a very structured approach to, oh, I need to get a focus group. You can just go out and basically for free, there are people willing to help you out if you're literally solving for their problem. That's a great thing to think about. Like people are there. You don't have to pay to get those information. Those insights will come.
Get out of the building. Get out of the building approach, I think is.
Yeah, get the idea out and test it.
Yeah, so what I did is I, like all the early testers got like all the premium Soosee supported features for free, which I think is a nice thing to do. I don't think it's necessarily, you have to do it for every product, but especially the people that were there from the start, they basically helped shape it to what it is. So, and like you said, Federico, if you're helping someone, they're more than happy to help you out as well. If you just show that your intentions are like pure and not just strictly business. And even then, like if you're solving a problem, might still be nice. But I think also posting in Facebook groups with your own, like your real account and the account you also use for friends makes you feel real. I think like not like a corporation coming with a product to earn money. No, it's just me, and I mean, they can literally call me if they want because they have me on Facebook. So it doesn't get much closer than that, I think. Yeah. The downside to that is also that people will constantly send you, oh, hey, it's not working for this or it's not working for that. So I wouldn't suggest doing it in like your first or second version, because you're going to get a lot of like, hey, this is broken. And what also helps is to invite your mom for test flights. Because my mom, sometimes she sends me, I mean, she used the app for 2 months, and then last week she said, oh yeah, it doesn't work with milk, which is like one of the things I think I've tested 100 times. And there's like a little area at the top of the screen, that's actually where the scanning happens, because it can't do the full screen due to UX and also performance reasons. And my mom would just like put the label at the bottom of the screen, which has like a black overlay and text over it. And so that really makes it clear, like, hey, you should like make some stuff even more clear.
And I like to say that there is another lesson learned from you is that, again, don't over-index on marketing, especially you're a startup of one, right? Or, I mean, you got a few partners and help here and there. And, I mean, thanks to your mom as well. But I would say that it doesn't matter if you're not like that big. a lot of new startup, they're all about, oh, we should do marketing and a lot of social and blah, blah, blah. And you're just saying, hey, look, just by going into this user testing, you will get all the marketing that you can possibly get. And that's very similar even to what Matteo said. Like, you guys intentionally decide not to market and not to go on marketing and over-indexing on that, because having a solid product is more important, and then you will scale up once you're ready to do it. So that's another very important lesson that I'm learning from you.
Yeah, I do think, while I agree with you, I do think it kind of depends on the product as well, because I think a large part of it is like there's a wow factor with Soosee, where if people like, they see this magical thing of like the camera highlighting the words that they cannot have, which makes it, I think, like something like shareable as well, or something that they want to be a part of a little bit more. Whereas if you have a more traditional product where you're making something like a process a little bit easier or something, which can also be just as valuable, don't get me wrong, then it might be more difficult to gain traction in that way. You're going to have to spend more time convincing people of the benefits compared to other solutions. But with Soosee, it's like in the first few seconds you see, hey, whoa, this is cool, and you want to see more. But yeah, I definitely agree with your thing of don't put too much time and effort into marketing or finding your product market fit. Like, just get feedback, and then from that feedback you'll learn like which direction you should put the product in and where you can find new people and stuff. I've even have like people from Germany sending me like 10 different magazines in Germany, like, hey, you should send it to this one and this one and this one and this one. So they're basically doing the marketing for me, which is, it's kind of strange, because that's not how it's supposed to work, right?
The great power behind Soosee, from what I can see, is in the community that you are building and fostering this workspace with your users, and this kind of human impact that I can feel. That is probably the key of your success.
Do you know?
I'm not sure. I mean,
what makes you feel the human impact? I'm curious to hear. Like, I don't want it to just become a product. I want it to keep this connection with people. So I definitely agree. I wonder though if it's more important like for the first 10,000 downloads, because you're using it also just to gain traction and using it to get like early feedback, and over time it might become more difficult. So, for example, if you have, let's say you have a million users or something, can you still get that one-on-one connection if it's just a few people? You would start to have to automate some stuff. I'm not really sure yet how to approach that problem, because I'm seeing it now already with like the feedback form and with people submitting words that are missing. At the start I would like reply to everyone one-on-one, but I think that becomes very difficult very quickly. Also, when you support different languages where you might not speak the language, it takes a lot of time to make a good, like, for example, you and I, we speak in English, but let's say you weren't able to speak English, you would probably speak Italian, right? I would have to do like Google Translate in between, try to find out the nuance and everything. I think obviously this is like a luxury problem, because if you're at the point where you have too many users to have a good conversation, you should probably find someone to join your company to take care of that, or to find ways to automate some of that stuff. But I want it to stay as like human and personal and like community based as possible without making a full community, because there's obviously products that also do like these whole forums and where you see all the people that submitted content and you can follow other people, and there's value in that as well, but that becomes a whole nother beast, and then you start having to deal with personal data and all that stuff. I don't want any of that. But I'm actually curious to hear from you two. Are there any other products that you think do this community approach, or do this other way of like finding feedback?
I think nowadays there is something similar on the maternity side. So the maternity experience is something that goes beyond even the typical, you get into the hospital, you got your test, you deliver a baby, and then you have to grow it up, right? The aspect of community is probably even stronger than what you're experiencing right now, because you have a bunch of moms that probably are experiencing this for the first time. Same thing. Yeah, going through the same thing at different moment. They don't know what's going to happen, and they have a lot of uncertainty that goes even before. I mean, it's like 9 months. The day of the delivery is paradoxically it's like the easiest thing, because it's the thing that have happened to tons and tons of people. And then after, what the hell do I do? How do I grow up a baby? So that is very something
different for all these people.
Yeah. So that's where I find something as similar and as strong, where people are genuinely interested in this aspect of community that goes beyond the experience of any maternity app.
I think that makes complete sense. And what you see also with like baby monitoring apps and stuff, those are like, if you look at it, they're basically just a FaceTime call wrapped in a cool app packaging. But by linking it to, hey, this is for you and your baby, it's a personal thing, you're making it like, hey, these are tips on how to get your baby to sleep faster, stuff like that. That way you can make a simple product into something that's something that people want to talk about to other people. Oh, I use this one, instead of, oh yeah, I have an app for that,
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, because in relation to Soosee, there's a lot of like these barcode scanner apps where you just scan the barcode, it checks a database and says, all right, hey, this is what's in there. There's two problems, like those databases don't really work a lot of the times, and they're not international and stuff like that. But the other problem is that they just basically display the information and say, oh, this is all the stuff that's in there. Whereas if you focus on one specific thing, then you can find the audience that wants that specific thing. And once you know like your very narrow audience, you can start like interacting with them in the way that works for them, instead of just being this broad thing. So that's also why I'm hesitant in adding new stuff, because as soon as you start adding stuff, then you have to communicate your features in different ways as well. So I think that's why for a lot of successful, for example, with like meditation apps, most of them like Calm and Headspace, they started out super simple, like, hey, we've got these sessions, like 20 meditation sessions per category, and now you're seeing that they're slowly adding more things, like tracking your state of mind, and giving you tools for like yoga and stuff like that. But that's only after they've been able to position themselves in that, and I think also then their target audience grows with them into that new direction. So maybe someone will in the future will download my app for the allergy part, but then also enable all the environmental impact categories, because they want to eat less products that have a bad impact on the environment. Or maybe my app can be the trigger for them to start thinking about keto, because it really quickly highlights, oh, hey, this is not good for keto diets, and then you don't have to do it fully out from the start, but you can grow into that direction. But for me, my focus, I just want to make sure it's a really good product and that it works and helps people. And I think I can spend the next 6 to 12 months just improving that and making the experience nicer and doing the onboarding, making sure that people understand how to use it, because it doesn't matter how simple you make the app. I've got people now who don't understand the main premise of the app, even though it's like 1 or 2 screens. So there's a lot of stuff you can improve there. And also stuff like the localization really helps there, I think, because most apps nowadays get made in English. So you have an English localization and an English app store. But the problem is, let's say you make an app that is to sell a house. Like if you live in Italy and, for example, Raphael's mom, let's say she wants to sell her house. She's not going to go to the app store and then type in sell a house. She's going to type, like, I don't know what it is in Italian, but...
Vendere una casa.
Vendo casa.
Okay. So that's what you're going to look for. So even just by making sure you use the right keywords, and then in the app, if everything is done in Italian, I think a localization is like 2 or 3 times more valuable than doing like a little redesign where you make your app a little bit nicer in terms of the design. Obviously, the design needs to be good enough to work, and you can improve on it and make your character to that. But I think a lot of people overlook the value of making sure that it works for people in their environment and their life, Yeah, because it's really easy to just think, oh yeah, all apps are English, so let's make mine English as well, because it's such an easy thing to do. Everyone has people around them that speak different languages. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just start with one language, then reach out to someone else, do them a favor in return, just something so you can get the ball rolling, I think. Because what I saw is in a previous app I had only in English, and then I translated the keywords and stuff to French, and then afterwards France all of a sudden became like the biggest user group directly after changing like the keywords in the App Store and the description and the app localization itself. So I think that's a really easy and often overlooked design improvement that people can do in any product. Doesn't matter how big or small it is.
What do you think is design nowadays, and what is your definition?
Good design is when you understand what you're trying to achieve and how your user are going to use your product. So if you really understand what problem it is you're trying to solve, then it doesn't matter if you use rounded rectangles, if you use shadow, if you use like a flat design or anything. It's like, what's the perfect solution or the best solution for your specific problem, and that specific problem might be different than the problem you thought it was at the start. So that's why I think the talking to your user or having users be able to give you easy feedback, I think that's where good design is. And I think if you don't know what problem you're trying to solve, you can spend so much time on designs and UX and cool animations and stuff, but yeah, that's not going to fix the problem itself if you don't know what the problem is. So I think design should like get out of the way as much as possible, and you should use your design skills in terms of like the visual stuff to highlight and to add happiness and to add character and nice things to your experience. I think that's where it really shines.
Nice, I love it.
That is a really good definition.
I rambled on a bit.
Totally
sorry.
agree. No,
we all ramble. It's a hard one. I don't think anyone will not ramble around it.
Yes.
Man, I think that has been pretty phenomenal. We covered a lot of topic. We found a lot of takeaways that I can't wait to summarize. And of course, we're wishing you the best for Soosee. We'll stay in touch.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, thank you to you guys for the nice talk. It's really nice to talk to people that think a little deeper about this stuff, because I obviously have friends who are like enthusiastic about what's going on. They're like, oh, you're getting investors and how many users and blah blah blah. But it's nice to go a little bit deeper, like, all right, why is this the approach that I should take, or why is this working for a product, and what's a different way to do it? And so yeah, let's definitely stay in touch after this, because I'm really curious to hear your thoughts in the future as well.
For all you out there, download Soosee on the Apple Store.
Yes.
It's definitely gonna be in your language. Thank you guys. It was an infinite pleasure. I hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Jordi.
Talk to you soon.
Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao ciao.